Well, then, that green preserve is nothing less than the ambrosia which Hebe served at the table of Jupiter. But, replied Franz, this ambrosia, no doubt, in passing through mortal hands, has lost its heavenly appellation, and assumed a human name. In vulgar phrase, what you may term this composition, for which, to tell the truth, I do not feel any particular desire. Thus it is our material origin is revealed, cried Sinbad. We frequently pass so near to happiness without seeing, without regarding it, or if we do see it and regard it, yet without recognizing it. Are you a man for the substantials, or is gold your god? Taste this, and the minds of Peru, Gujarat, and Golconda are open to you. Are you a man of imagination, a poet? Taste this, and the boundaries of possibility disappear. The fields of infinite space open to you. You advance free in heart, free in mind, into the boundless realms of unfettered reverie. Are you ambitious, and do you seek after the greatness of the earth? Taste this, and in an hour you will be a king. Not a king of a petty kingdom hidden in some corner of Europe like France, Spain, or England, but king of the world, king of the universe, king of creation. Without bowing at the feet of Satan, you will be king and master of all the kingdoms of the earth. Is it not tempting what I offer you, and is it not an easy thing, since it is only to do thus? Look. At these words he uncovered the small cup which contained the substance so lauded, took a teaspoonful of the magic sweetmeat, raised it to his lips, and swallowed it slowly with his eyes half shut and his head bent backwards. Franz did not disturb him whilst he absorbed his favorite sweetmeat, but when he had finished he inquired, "What, then, is this precious stuff?" "Did you ever hear," he replied, "of the old man of the mountain, who attempted to assassinate Philippe Auguste?" "Of course I have." "What is this green stuff? Oh my god. If I didn't know better, I'd say it's some sort of edibles." What's Dante even saying here? Taste this, and in an hour you will be king, not of a petty kingdom hidden in some corner of Europe, but king of the world, king of the universe, king of creation. My god. I think Dante has spiked the jello. Everyone watch out for the ambrosia. You're going to be flying high if you eat some of this stuff. Maybe that's what's going on. Dante hasn't been corrupted by wealth. He's just living in a constant state of delusion and paranoia, and that's why he's dropped off the map. Everyone's out to get him, so no one can get me if I live inside my little cave here. Though, I mean, he's not. That's just me. He's not paranoid. Otherwise, he'd be freaked out by the appearance of Franz. No idea what this stuff is or what. It looks like they're about to enter into some sort of ceremony. I mean, Dumas wouldn't have Dante eat it if Franz wasn't about to. So, what are they about to experience? I don't know what's going on with this at all. It's one of these days that's hard to comment on the story because the answer will come in a day or two. And I just have to be patient. We all have to be patient to find out what exactly is happening. But Dumas is also using, he's allowing Dante his little dalliances with mythological comparisons, as he says that this is what Hebe delivered at the table of Jupiter, using Roman mythology now instead of Greek mythology. I mean, which is what it is, but he's allowing Dante to be a little grandiose, show off a bit. He's allowing Dante to be the one to lure Franz into a situation, a trap, maybe. Okay, listen, I said I wasn't going to speculate anymore. I'm just going to ask a question here that I'm curious about. It's entered my head. And, if you're a reader, I think everybody has these questions because the human brain is always trying to stay ahead of the story that's being told them. I don't know why that is, but it's just a question that entered my head. We don't need to dwell on it, but I wonder if Dante knows who Franz is and has lured him here for some reason. This seems like a lot to unpack for just a chance encounter. So I'll be curious to track that the more we go along. Let's get back to some more about Auguste Mackay. And I realize I'm mispronouncing Auguste's name every single time I say it. I have no consistency. But let's talk a little bit more about who he was before we go more into the collaboration he had with Dumas. I mentioned before he's a French writer, historian. He was educated at the Lycée Charlemagne, but I think the most important thing as far as his contributions to Dumas' stories is that he was really entrenched in French history and I'd say European history, because you look at what he does with something like Musketeers, and a little bit here, at least in passing reference to English history, the kings and monarchies that ruled that, the conflicts that England had with France throughout the ages. But in addition to that, he also has a sort of, as a writer, a classical structure. And I think this is one of the keys to Dumas' popularity, to his success. As we talked about yesterday, Mackay would be the one that would often plot out the stories, and Dumas would be the one to add color and character to them. So the way I'm thinking about this, and I could have this comparison wrong, but like with the classical structure, you are using a tried and true, reliable way of telling a story and putting your variances, your themes, your characters on top of it. I realize that is a little bit in conflict to what I had said a couple episodes ago about being unmoored with who Dante is and whether or not we're following him as the main character in the story anymore. But I'm speaking more generally about Mackay's work. He has this classical structure that he uses, and Dumas comes in and adds the individual notes to it. If I can make a comparison that I don't know is apt or not, it reminds me a bit of like Billy Joel or any kind of pop rock composer, where you look at Billy Joel's compositions musically for his pop songs, and they aren't that complicated. They mostly all follow a pretty simple formula. But what Billy Joel does with those songs, the lyrics he uses, the stories he tells within that pop structure, is what makes him so popular. It's what makes him who he is. It's his voice. I think Dumas is doing something similar by using this classical structure to tell the stories he wants to tell. Apparently, this comes from at least one of the biographies that I am reading on Dumas, as well as some additional research once I got into Auguste Mackay. They met through a piece of work that Mackay wrote. I'm not going to attempt the pronunciation in French, but I think it translates to Bonaparte and the Republic. And after Mackay wrote this, through some managers, some literary intermediaries, I don't know if managers were around at the time, publishers maybe, the Mackay's manuscript arrived on Dumas' desk. And Dumas read it, and he noticed that the structure of the story was incredibly strong, but dramatically inert. It was just flat on the page. But he also recognized that all it required was a little bit of revision, some stylistic flair, and there was a lot of commercial viability to it, which I think speaks to Dumas as a businessman. So Dumas rewrote it, and he published it under his own name. Now, I don't have a lot of information about that, whether or not that was contentious, whether or not that was welcomed by Mackay, but it's essentially what started their partnership. I don't know the moment that the two met in person, but that is more or less the beginning of their working relationship. So a little bit more research I found about the kind of assembly line process that they had while working together. After Dumas had the ideas that he wanted to explore, Mackay would go and do historical research. He would, from that research, outline plots, narrative arcs, maybe suggest new characters that would fit well into the historical era in which they're talking about. You look at Musketeers, and there's the Duke of Buckingham, but there's also the Cardinal, and then, the Cardinal's first minion, if you will, Rocheleau and Rochefort. They are characters that fit into the historical world that might not have been there when Dumas first came to the idea of the story. And then from this, he would give Dumas early drafts or early versions of chapters. So he's establishing chronology, he's establishing the logic of the story, politically as well as narratively, causality. So, like, if this happens at this point in the story, it is setting up something that has to happen to follow that later in the story. And Dumas would take all of this work, which is a significant amount of work, that the story wouldn't exist without, and then he would rewrite it pretty extensively. He would add dialogue, he'd add the romance, suspense, things that make it commercial, things that would make it popular. This is him putting his romanticism touch on it, because he would deepen the philosophy, he would deepen the character psychology in order to kind of make it fit with that emotional turmoil that defined the Romantic period. He would also be the one, Dumas would be the one, to find the cliffhangers in which to serialize it. So he would recognize a good dramatic point in which to end something to hook readers to buy the next issue of the newspaper or the magazine. So he's really a businessman on top of being an author, which I think also comes from the theater, where when you are writing a manuscript, you have to take into consideration the limitations of the stage, the budget, the production. There's a lot of things that are going through your mind, and you have to write it in a way that people are going to show up on day one, that the critics are going to give it a fair review, and that it will play on stage for a significant period of time in order to get ticket sales, in order to get it published, so that you can get an advance on that, or you can get paid for your work. Once it's published, then you get residuals from that. So I think Dumas, and that's all just guesswork on my part, but I think Dumas is approaching writing as a business venture more than a passionate expression of his soul, the way that, we tend to glorify writers for. Okay, I'm sure I've got more McKay stuff that we'll go into later. That's all I've got for today, so until tomorrow, goodbye. The Countdown of Monte Cristo is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. This show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Theme song by Magic Solo. If you want to support the show and others like it, visit patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.